Hello, Alan Barton here, and I am today in the wilds of Norfolk. Well, I'm just to the south of Norwich, well, about 15 miles south of Norwich, just towards the border between Norfolk and Suffolk, and I'm at the Church of St Margaret at Hales, which I want to show you. It's one of the most exquisite and delightful churches in this part of the county, with an awful lot to offer. Now here I am walking up the south path towards this wonderful thatched church with a round tower. It's a round tower church. I apologise, we're slightly in the sun here. It really is a delightful and atmospheric building. So as we approach here, we approach from the north, we're heading towards a Norman door, and much of the fabric of this church dates from the middle of the 12th century, including this fantastic door. The sun's not too bad for you to be able to see this in some detail. Oh, look at this. It really is a stonker of a door. So I say mid 12th century, 1140s or 1150s or thereabouts. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 orders of decoration with chevron and sort of beakheads, almost like beakheads. They're not quite beakheads. Let's have a look at this in some detail. It really is a splendid door and in very good condition indeed. Look at that. And I noticed earlier when I was having a quick look round that there's quite a lot of graffiti on this door, including some very well carved crosses, and I think they're on both sides. Let's not get too distracted by that. So a mid 12th century door, and the rest of the church is primarily 12th century fabric, though of course it's been altered in later centuries. I'm walking around the north wall of the nave, towards the north side of the chancel. Now, I've got a lot of nettles here, so I'm not going to venture too far into the grass, but just to give you a view of the exterior of the nave here. Lovely Norman arcading or Norman windows, probably blank arcading I think by the looks of this, and an apsidal, a rounded east end to the chancel. We've got a type of chancel termination that went out of fashion in the 13th century. So that's a rarity in itself. Okay, so having looked at a little bit of the exterior, as much as I can show you with this camera, let's head inside and have a look there, because there really is treasures within through this 12th century door. Okay, so a modern door. That first initial glimpse as we come in. Ooh, right. First thing to note, there are quite a few medieval wall paintings here. The first thing to note is immediately opposite this north door is a large figure of St Christopher holding the Christ child. These are usually painted opposite the main entrance to a church. The medieval belief was if you saw an image of St Christopher each day, you wouldn't die a sudden death, which is why they were painted there. And that appears, well, the camera adjusts, it appears to be a 14th century image of Christopher. And so there are lots of wall paintings here. Let's get this door closed. But before we look at those, here at the west end, we have a 15th century font with figures of angels and roses around the bowl, all the way around. And then at the bottom, I'm going to zoom in so you can see these delightful, perky little figures of lions standing at attention. And then more angels around the base of the bowl there, supporting the bowl. There's a really super 15th century font, typical of Norfolk. What's also typical of Norfolk is the flooring here, a mixture of brick, tile and paments. These bigger lozenge shaped tiles here, which are a Norfolk speciality. So let's take in the vista looking east in this wonderful building. So we're now looking east towards the chancel. And as you can see, wall paintings all over. Now let's move further east. As we move down the nave towards the chancel and the high altar. Now as we pass this point here, you'll notice there's a cross there on the wall. Very gently swivel round so you don't get seasick. And another cross there on the wall. These are the consecration crosses painted on the wall where this church was consecrated with chrism, with holy oil, when it was first constructed in the mid-12th century. On this splay of this window here, we've got a position where clearly a carved panel or image was formerly set. When the image is gone, it would have been in this space here, but above it is a beautiful 14th century painted canopy over the top of it. Okay. And on the opposite window splay, I hope you can see this with the light coming in through this window here. It might take a minute for the camera to adjust. But there is a painted figure, a 14th century figure of St James the Great. You see his pilgrim's staff in his hand. And then a little bit above there is a bit of 13th century wall decoration, which is rather nice. And on the north side here we've got the rood stairs, which would have led up to the rood loft, which is gone. Of course, above here would have been the great cross, the great rood, which has gone completely, and presumably the chancel arch, which you can see here, would have been filled with a wooden tympanum with the doom painting on it, which continued onto the walls, because on either side, it's very, very difficult to see probably from this distance. I might put some photographs up of this for you. Are two figures of angels blowing the last trump for the second coming of Christ. And this would have been, so it would have been a doom painting behind the image of Christ crucified. Oh, the reed screen is a bit of a sorry thing, really. It's been cut down. All its tracery is gone, its uprights are gone, just the dado. But it appears to have been a fairly simple thing. With a counterchange of red and green panels. No figurative work here, it seems. And I reckon, given how this has been painted, can you see how really fascinating? If I step back for a moment, the way this has been painted here, or should I say, in fact, that most of this dado on this side and on the other side has not been painted, may indicate that in medieval times, when this, in the 15th century, when this rood screen was installed, that there was a side altar up against the screen, which is fairly common. And on the other side, it's a little bit more elaborate, and this has been painted at some point, not with figurative work, it seems, a bit of tracery surviving there, not with figurative works, but with a counterchange of red and green panels. And, oh, I love this. And there's a tiny, tiny little elevation squint there, which is above the level. I assume it's an elevation squint, so that somebody could peer through. If you peer through there, we'll just see the back of the organ, unfortunately. You can just see where the high altar was, which would allow somebody stood in front of this altar to be able to see the elevation of the host when kneeling. That's very, very fun. So yeah, a very sorry screen. But then into the chancel itself, and the high altar. Still, as I say, with its apsidal Norman East End, but altered in the 13th century. So they updated it the beginning of the 13th century and inserted Gothic, pointed early English lancet windows in the apse itself, replacing the original Norman windows, presumably. And while they were doing that, they also incorporated two rather fine tabernacles, as they would have been called in the Middle Ages, image niches. You've got one here on the left-hand side of the high altar and another on the right here. And these would have contained the images of the Mother of God, Mary, Our Lady, and the patron saint of this church, which is St Margaret. So they would have been placed here on either side of the high altar. Now, these niches have been completed with paintwork. So the painting all on this side appears to be 15th century. The painting on this side, the camera adjust, painting on this side all appears to be 14th century. So rather than carving an elaborate canopy here, instead they have painted a canopy around this niche. And then up above is some lovely 13th century foliage painted right around the upper part of the chancel. And it continues all the way round on the south side here until you get to the chancel arch. I notice also there's a couple more consecration crosses here, one here on the north side, and there's another on the south side, another on the north side too. So looking west here along the length of the church, and there's also an 18th century west gallery here too. And I'm going to take us up into the west gallery to give us one last look of the interior. And then we'll go round to the other side and have a look at the south side of the church from the outside. So past the font again. We go into the tower through a Norman arch. Now, you can just see a bit of the decoration of the Norman arch there. But it's otherwise filled in and blocked. And then we go up some little stairs. It'll go a little dark for a minute. There we go, past the decoration of the Norman arch. You can see the round head of the arch. We're just appearing out of the round head of the Norman tower arch. And then we're coming up into the west gallery. Get that fabulous view east towards that chancel. Look at all those wall paintings. There's the chancel arch. You can just see those bits of painting on either side, which are those angels blowing the last trump for the end of time. And from up here, you can see the head of St Christopher and the Christ child. It is a wonderfully atmospheric building. So let's go down these stairs, and we're just going to have a quick whiz round the to the south side of the church, where I can quickly show you what's there, and then finish off. So I do recommend you come to this. It's actually really beautifully kept by the church's Conservation Trust. It's in quite a remote spot here, and there's been a bit of trouble and vandalism lately. But they've responded beautifully to that by keeping this building open, I'm very pleased to say. Oh yes, I'd forgotten this. Around the walls here, you've got 17th century panelling, which are presumably from the now removed box pews. And in fact, just at the back here, you've just got the remains of one of those box pews from the 18th century. So that's a nice touch. The restoration that took place in the late 19th century is very, very subtly done. Very subtly done. Right, so going out now. What a beautiful spot this is. I'm coming around the edge of the round tower here, and you can see the typical flint masonry of Norfolk. Norfolk is not a county rich in good building stone. But we're coming around this round tower to the south side of the church. Beautiful. Some bracken over there in the distance in this gloriously slightly overgrown churchyard, which I rather like. So again, on this side you have got another mid-12th century doorway, very elaborately decorated, but not as elaborate as the north side, again indicating that the north was the main entrance to the church. It really is lovely. We've got some dice decoration there as well, which is a rather nice touch. Lots of zigzag. Very late and rather decadent Norman work. And more graffiti, more crosses. The IHC, the sacred monogram, the name of Jesus, carved there. More crosses. None on that side. And then round on this side, I'm just going to come away from the south wall of the nave. Hoping you're still with me at this point. And there's the south wall of the nave. You can see originally it had Norman windows too. Just one remains. Oh, how fantastic it would have been before this later fenestration. You know, that window there, perhaps 14th century, but I'm more inclined to think 19th. And certainly a bit of church warden's Gothic window there, probably from the early 19th century. Now, can I get anywhere near the chancel from this side? I think I might just be able to pick my way round without getting completely... I'm very stupidly wearing shorts, which is not the most practical clothing for church crawling in summer. So there we go. Oh, just look at that. Lovely Norman windows. The 13th century windows that have replaced them. Oh, how fashion changes so quickly in the medieval period. And still some rough cast on the wall as well, which is rather nice. Very textured, isn't it? And you've got a string course that goes all the way around with decoration on it, Norman decoration on it. So hopefully, I'll just give you one last view of this side, looking up to the round tower, and I will leave you there. So this is St Margaret's Church in Hales in Norfolk, one of the finest little Norman churches in the east of England. Thanks very much for watching. Bye for now.